and you guys caught me mid-laugh about something that happened earlier today. Anyway, so I am super excited to have Jenny here to join me, talk about what she does that's cool, because that's what these hot seats are for, is cool people doing cool things and highlighting stories and stuff. So I'm going to start just by curiosity's sake here. Why'd you want to join me here? I mean,
well, I'm a little bit mission driven because like the stuff that I've discovered, the stuff that I'm giving to people is so powerful. I just feel like we all, like, it's our birthright. We all should have, as growing up as children with all of the skills to manage our emotions and manage our life and have it be fulfilling. And we just don't get it,
right.
So when I've got something that is just that powerful, I just, any opportunity I get to talk about it, I'm right there.
Yeah, excellent. Okay. So how about a nuts and bolts kind of elevator pitch? What you do, who you do it for, how you do it, whatever you wanna give me.
Sure. So basically what I've done is, because for my own purposes, I needed to discover this. I burned out, right? I was not managing my emotions and my life well at all. I thought I was. I thought I was a super high achiever, or type A, go, get stuff done. And then suddenly I burned out and I realized that the way I was running my life was unsustainable. So I had to go figure all this stuff out. Like, what are you supposed to do with your emotions? How are you supposed to figure out what to do in life? How do you do things sustainably? How do you achieve like big goals without destroying your health or your relationships or whatever else? And then everything I figured out, whenever I told it to someone else, they were like, oh my God, that's like light bulb. That's life-changing. I did the thing you said, and oh my God, I got this result and that result. And so it was kind of inevitable. I had to put it together into some kind of structured program. So it's now a 6-month program. It's called Emotional Mastery. It's basically take control of your life, take control of your emotional state, and, not just deal with whatever immediate, emotional disaster might be going on, if you're grieving or you've got anxiety or whatever, but actually moving beyond that. Actually going into the positive realm and going, okay, who am I really? What am I here to do in this life? How do I find that information inside myself? And then how do I actually take who I am and put that out in the world and live the life I was actually born to live?
Yes. Okay. So, I mean, people see me turning sideways. I'm taking notes because I don't want to interrupt anybody while they're talking. And so every time somebody says something that snags my attention, I'm like, ooh, I got to jot that down so I can go ahead and ask questions. So I jotted a couple things down. Question, you said something about you thought you were managing your life well. What does that look like, to be thinking that you're managing your life well, but actually not? And was it like a full-blown like burnout that before you realized that maybe things weren't as good as you thought they were, or how did that
work? To be honest, I had clues which I disregarded.
Okay.
Right. So I was working as a business consultant and executive coach, doing lots of high-powered stuff in the business world. I had 3 school-age children. I was doing volunteer stuff in various communities, personal development courses. Like, I was just jammed. I would just like fall into bed exhausted every night and then crawl out of bed exhausted every morning. But I was hitting my goals. I was making the income. I was, changing the world. I was working with clients who were doing really important, powerful stuff, so it was like inspiring and motivating work. But I did have a few hints, I remember one that really stuck out to me. A friend of mine at one point went into rehab. She realized that she just had to completely quit drinking. She was just not able to have 2 drinks a day. So she went into rehab, and I went to visit her on the first day she was there. And I remember having this feeling of envy. Like, oh my God, she gets to sit around for 3 weeks and do nothing but think about her life. Like, I wish I could do that. Why do you have to have an addiction before you get to take a 3-week break and rethink your life, And so I said to myself, I should probably take a bit of a break. I should probably, like, when I finish this project, like, not take another one, and just, like, make myself a resolution. I'm not going to do anything just for money anymore. I'm going to, and then someone offered me an 8-week stint, like filling in for a manager somewhere who'd got sick. And I thought, well, 8 weeks, 8 weeks is not a lot. That's fine. I can do 8 weeks. And then it turned out that manager had actually been in a really bad way for quite some time. It was a big mess. They put him out for early retirement, and then it took them a year to find someone to replace him.
You were there for a year, an 8-week stint?
Yeah, and by the end of that year, I was burned out.
Oh.
Yeah, and I did have the warning, I could have turned that down. But I didn't listen to the warning. And this is the thing, like, I see this all the time. When you're in this go, go, go adrenaline mode, like, you just don't pay that much attention to these kind of hints that you're getting from your kind of full self, your emotional embodied self, that, like, this is not a good direction. We need to change a direction here. Like, those hints come and you just kind of brush them aside. It's like, later, I'll get to that later, and then you just hit the wall.
Oh, okay. All right. So you also said something about teaching people how to find the information inside themselves. So you had to dig deep into yourself to find it, because you didn't have anybody coaching you through this. You just kind of figured it out yourself.
No,
I was on the job training.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate. I had done a degree in psychology, so I had a little bit of a framework, a little bit of a map as to, like, where I might look for stuff.
Okay.
But basically, I figured this all out on my own. And since then, because this was the early 2000s, right? So since then, there's been a whole bunch of research and papers and stuff has been popularized about trauma and coping strategies and all of that kind of stuff. And so it would, if it happened now, I would have access to a lot more stuff than I did back then. I really had to figure out my own things from my own experience back then.
That stuck out to me because I've been told the same thing. The answers are within you. The answers are within you. I just want to tear my hair out, though, because where?
Yes.
If they're within me, they're hiding.
Yeah.
They probably buried themselves underneath some fat cells somewhere, which aren't going anywhere. And so I'm like, where are they? And so every person that says that to me, I'm like, super. Everybody tells me that, but nobody tells me, like, if it's not forthcoming, what do you do? Or,
exactly.
Coaches, mindset coaches, a lot of them, it seems like they, that's a default, like the answers are within you, right? Okay. But what do you do when you've got a client, maybe like me, that goes, I don't know. It's not there.
Yeah. So there is a process, like, for, with the state I was in, like, there's a lot of people who are in that state where you're kind of like, you're up, you're on, you're like, you're using adrenaline to get yourself through the day. And that gets stuff done, but it also, adrenaline blocks a lot of your awareness of the more subtle sensations that are happening in your body.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Right? Because if you need to run from a tiger, you don't want to feel the broken ankle.
Fair.
Right? So, and you certainly don't want to think about how much you miss your dead grandmother. Right? The tiger's going to get you if you think about that. So if you're running on adrenaline, all of the emotional information is pushed away from your conscious awareness. Right?
And you have to stop the adrenaline in order to
access that.
Is that why a lot of times, like, after, like, people will cope really well during a traumatic, like a drawn out traumatic thing, like, the kind of thing that would give somebody maybe CPTSD. But when that's over, they just fall apart.
Yeah. It's like when you get to the point, like, you've got away from the tiger, then you can get rid of the adrenaline, and then you can feel the impact on your body. You can feel the impact on your emotions. Ooh, because it's now safe to feel that. The tiger's not going to get you.
Okay. Now, your little reptilian brain that doesn't want you to change, isn't that going to fight you on feeling the feelings and digging deep within yourself? And okay.
Yeah, anytime you make a change of any kind,
Mm-hmm.
you'll trigger this off. Your subconscious is very conservative. If we did this before and we didn't die, it's a good thing and we should keep doing it.
What if we did this before we didn't die, but it didn't do anything for us either? Like
well,
it didn't.
If you didn't die, it's a good thing. If something new and unknown might kill you, better not do that. Better do the thing that we know doesn't kill us. At a very, very fundamental level, subconsciously, we're super conservative. So in order to make any change, in order to grow, in order to do anything new, we do have to handle this terror. It's mortal terror. It's like we could die kind of terror.
So evolutionarily speaking, we haven't caught up with the fact that we aren't actually going to die if we get on a Facebook Live and it's the first time we've ever done it.
That's right.
It thinks our brains think we're going to kill it by getting on a Facebook Live.
Yep, anything you haven't done before might kill you.
Okay.
So part of the mastering your life and mastering your emotions is accepting that your system does this. And actually allowing yourself to be consciously aware, okay, I'm going to do a new thing. So there's going to be some mortal terror, but I'm familiar with mortal terror. I know and understand mortal terror. I move through it every time I do something new. So I'm not going to do any kind of avoidance strategies or coping strategies to get away from the fear. I'm just going to go, yeah, this is the adrenaline that comes whenever I do something new, and that's fine.
I love that. That's brilliant because, I've faced the fear of, getting on camera or whatever before. But I never considered, and I was always kind of like, oh, come on, Becky, suck it up, deal. You can do this, right? Never, oh, it's okay to feel like this might kill you. Because realistically speaking, it's not going to kill me. I know that, but apparently I don't know that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, I am looking at your pinned post on my phone right now because your pinned post has some really, really cool stuff about your program. And I have some questions. All right. So I like the what it's not. The discussing your problem. What is wrong with discussing your problems? Why does that not work? Or does it work? It's just not what you do.
It's a good way to pass the time, but intellectualizing, thinking, analyzing, that's not what moves the dial. The analytical mind is like the tip of the iceberg. The vast majority of what goes on for us is going on at an embodied, emotional, subconscious level. So if you're not doing something to actually move that whole system at an embodied level, then nothing's going to change. You can talk all day and all night, nothing will change.
Huh. Okay. So it's not a new age touchy-feely encounter group. What is that? I mean, I'm assuming that you have had people come to you expecting something like that, and that's why you've got this is what it's not. But what is that? And why is that not something that you do?
Well, there are programs that are supposedly getting you in touch with your emotions and things like that, where basically people are gathered together and they're encouraged to, have big emotional expressions and cry together and pound pillows and all that kind of stuff. And that sort of random emoting doesn't actually do anything to change your life, really. Like, you might get a bit of relief if you've been suppressing something and you get to express it. But whatever's causing you to feel that thing, it will still be there. So you'll feel that thing again tomorrow. And what are you going to do? Go to an encounter group every weekend? Like, you need to actually make a permanent change here.
Oh, goodness. I love it. Okay. So, you're not, but now what you are, you're a science-based multimedia educational content. What does that exactly mean? If somebody was to come into your program, what are they looking at as far as science-based and the multimedia educational content goes?
So I'm very big on educating people. like I found for myself having a bit of a framework from my academic understanding of psychology really helped. And I found with everybody that I work with, whenever I kind of explain a bit about how the system all hangs together, it really helps them. They stop judging themselves for how their system is behaving. They start to recognize that that's normal. So I go through in the program, we have video and audio material that goes through the basics of how the emotional system works, how the neurology works, how the physiology works, the ways that you can influence it. And we have a practice every week that people can do that will give them some kind of lever. It will change in some way what's going on in their system. So they can experiment with the different practices, find the ones that really work for them, and then practice them enough to make them subconscious habits so that they don't think about it anymore.
How long does that take with practicing to get to that subconscious kind of level?
It depends how diligently you practice. If you're practicing like all day, whenever you think of it, then 3 weeks, 4 weeks. The program's 6 months long. We start with basic tools to regulate your system. So people have 6 months of the program to practice them. Most people, if they keep up their practice, they've got it dialed in by the end. But if you're really diligent with your practice, I got to tell you, you can get like extraordinary results. One of my coaches who had done training with shamans on 3 different continents, indigenous people. So she was like, when the teacher tells you to do something, you just do it. She's been like buried alive and all those things. Like, so she's like, whatever I'm told to do, I'll just do it. So she took these practices and she did them as much as she possibly could, which is what we say to people to do. And so she's got to the point now where her system subconsciously regulates her adrenaline levels without her having to think about it. And here's how effective it is. So she was riding home on a motor scooter through the national park, like dark. There's no street lights in the national park. It's just all trees, right? Riding along the light of her motor scooter, and she feels this impact on her chest. She looks down and there's a snake across her. It just dropped out of a tree onto her while she's riding her motor scooter. So she like pulls to the side of the road, tips over, and the snake falls off, and then she zooms away and she thinks, okay, I'm not going to like calm myself down here in the darkness where I don't know where the snake is. I'm going to go somewhere that's light. So she went on for a few minutes till she got to a 7-Eleven, pulled into the car park there. Went, okay, now I'll do my thing, like after the crisis is over, when you fall apart. And nothing happened. Just like she thought about it, she remembered it, she went through it all. So, but in those few minutes where she'd been looking for a place with light, her subconscious had completely removed all of the adrenaline from her system, processed the whole shock, everything. It was done.
Wow. Okay, because I'm going, no snake flopped across my body. No. I'm thinking big freak out and
yeah.
No, that's not okay. Okay.
Yeah. Especially when you're like riding a motorcycle, because you don't have many options of things you can do when you're riding a motorcycle.
Crash.
Yeah. Yeah. For most people that, they would have lost control at that point of, of the motorcycle, of their body, so I can't stress enough how important it is to get your system set up the way it's supposed to be, so that when something happens that generates adrenaline, as soon as the thing is over, the adrenaline goes away. That's how we're supposed to work. Evolutionarily, that's how it always was. You only have adrenaline when you're running from the tiger, and when you get away from the tiger, the adrenaline goes away. But in our culture,
people aren't getting rid of the
tiger never goes away. The tiger is the clock on the wall and the deadlines, and they're always there.
Okay. Okay. So now scrolling. Well, okay. First of all, you said something that you were that you help people stop judging themselves for how their systems are behaving. What does that look like in practice for somebody who is judging themselves for the way that their body is behaving without their they're not directing their body to do this, right? They're not going, yes, please freak out. It's happening. And when somebody is judging themselves for how their body is behaving in a certain scenario, how does that look? What does that look like in somebody?
Well, it looks like things like, well, I shouldn't be so upset about this. What am I going on about? Or why don't I just get on and do things? Oh, for heaven's sake, stop procrastinating. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
just this
Okay.
kind of talking to yourself in a very uncompassionate way.
Okay. And that will, does that bleed out into other areas of your life, or does it only just affect you when you are judging yourself for the way that your system is behaving?
Well, generally, it's global. If we're judging ourselves for the way our system's behaving, we'll be judging other people as well. Oh, she's making such a fuss about that. Oh, why is she going on about that? Why doesn't she just suck it up and get on with it? Yeah.
She can't because the tiger's going to eat her.
Yeah. So most
Okay.
people are okay with being hard on themselves until they realize that being hard on themselves makes them hard on other people.
Or being hard on themselves breaks them.
In my experience, people are actually much more motivated by
How they treat
their impact
others.
on other people
Mm.
than their impact on themselves.
Why is that?
Well, we're a social animal.
Okay.
We can't survive alone. So it's very, very, very deep in our subconscious that we need to keep the people around us in a good space. They need to feel good about us. They need to be thriving and flourishing, because if they're not thriving and flourishing, or they're not feeling good about us, then we'll starve to death.
Okay. So is let's see here. I just lost that. It scrolled away from me. If you are able to, like, okay, so when your clients are done, they know that they're worth, and they expect to be treated with respect. They understand their emotions and the motivations of others. Now, how does this help them understand the motivations of others?
Well, we're all human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Our systems all work the same way. So the more you understand yourself, the more you're going to understand other people.
Even though environment has a lot to do with shaping our behaviors and our perceptions as well.
Yeah, it's part of what we do in the course, is we talk about how the environment shapes our
Oh,
behavior and our perceptions. Yeah,
cool.
part of the
Okay.
multimedia science-based stuff. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And we also have communication skills, so you can actually get feedback from people. You can form an idea about what might be going on for them emotionally, and you can check in and get good feedback. And so you can also learn directly from communicating well with other people.
Yeah, as I'm thinking about the motivation, the emotions and the motivations of others, it kind of brings me back to a conversation I had not long ago with one of my godsons and my goddaughter. They are biracial. Their dad is Black and their mom is white. And I was asking them some information, asking them some questions about how they experience race in the U.S. And I was talking to my goddaughter, and I was saying, it happens infrequently, but it does happen periodically that I go about my day aware of my femaleness. Where that becomes a something that I am aware of, but it doesn't happen very often. And so I asked her, I was like, and I can count on less than one hand the number of times in my entire life that my whiteness has been something that I have carried with me throughout my day. And so I asked my goddaughter about that, and she's like, all the time. I'm constantly aware. The people around me, the circumstances around me constantly remind me that I am a Black woman. And so thinking about, understanding the emotions and motivations of others and stuff, I mean, that was a really kind of powerful, like, eye-opening shift there to walk through life with that awareness all the time would be exhausting, first of all, I would think. But so to walk through your life with the awareness of the the reptilian brain that's telling you you're in danger, you're in mortal danger, there's a tiger. Is that exhausting, or is that something then that makes it less exhausting? Because it feels like having to hold on to that awareness all the time would be exhausting like that. To me.
Well, in my experience, it's pushing away that awareness that's exhausting. Like
Okay.
the awareness is there, and then we're trying to like distance ourselves from it. So we have all these
Oh.
coping strategies that we do of keeping ourselves super busy, keeping the adrenaline up so that we never actually have to confront the reality of what we're feeling.
Oh,
That's
so
exhausting.
if if we keep the adrenaline up, then we don't have to confront the way that we're feeling? Is that
Yeah, you can. I mean, people do actually manage to go their whole lives without burning out, just in type A go 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 mode. Like,
oh, okay. Huh,
but it's
interesting.
not a terrifically fulfilling way to live because it's really
Right.
hard to connect to other people if you're keeping all of your emotional information submerged.
Yeah. I like the components here that you're talking about that resolve disagreements in a way that make relationships stronger and listen closely without reacting to the tone or content of what is said. Now, is that actually that's achievable? Like
Mm-hmm.
that feels like something that is impossible.
Yeah, and without the right tools and skills, it is impossible. But if you've got your emotional regulation system in order, if you can deal with a snake falling on you, you can deal with somebody having a tone.
So do you just never get angry
Oh
then?
no,
Is
you
that
get angry because anger has its purpose, right?
okay?
Whenever your boundaries are crossed, whenever there's an injustice or an unfairness, whenever you need to like take action in some way, there'll be a surge of anger to give you the energy to deal with that.
Oh, okay. And then that surge is supposed to recede
Well, once
instead
you've
of
dealt with the thing,
staying. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Once you've dealt with the thing, then it goes
Okay.
away.
All right. And then you've got have others feel profoundly understood and freely share emotionally challenging information without making others upset. Um, these things all look like something that would like 100x or more your life, the quality of your life. This seems like anybody, literally anybody, could benefit from this. Do you have an ideal client then that you work with, or?
Well, for me, the ideal client is somebody who is interested in self development and has already put a lot of effort in some way or another, whether that's, spiritual practice or therapy or personal development courses or whatever it is, reading books and self study. But they've tried all of the kind of normal, boring stuff that's out there, and they're kind of done with being told the answers are inside and not being given any kind of tools to get there, like
Like I was
yeah,
saying earlier, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Just
okay.
love yourself. Like, what the hell does that even mean? Just love yourself. If you're separated from your own emotional world, like you're not loving yourself because, like, who am I supposed to love, or who's going to do the loving? Like, how does that even
Mhm.
work? Okay,
So
so
you're, oh, sorry, keep going.
yeah, my ideal person's reached a level of frustration with the stuff that's kind of
Mhm.
mainstream available. They're willing to
Your
put in the effort and make the change, but they just need someone to point them in the right direction of where to put that effort.
your program is different in that you're articulating a skills-based program rather than a talk or a just get in touch with your feelings kind of thing
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
Okay. That is super cool. I like this. This is awesome. Mastering I mean, so the nervous system needs to be tamed. It needs to have a boss, or it's just going to run rampant out of control.
I wouldn't use the language of boss
Okay.
because when you do that, you're kind of prioritizing the intellectual, language based, analytical mind
Hmm.
as the boss, right?
Okay.
But in truth, when you were born, that analytical mind did not exist. It developed when you were like 4 or 5
Hmm.
and continued to develop until you were in your early 20s. So for the first 4 or 5 years of your life, it wasn't even there. So it's not you.
Okay.
You are the person who was in the body experiencing life before that analytical mind came along. That's who you really are.
But realistically speaking, what we did was not all that much. I mean, we grew, we ate, we slept, we cried, we had diapers changed. I mean, that's not a very fulfilling life for long-term, like I wouldn't want to be doing that at 40,
Yeah, that's why we got an analytical mind, because the analytical mind's job is to figure out how the world works so that we can navigate the world and get stuff done and make it suit us and make our mark on the world. But the problem that we have is that we send the analytical mind to school and it gets taught all of this stuff that doesn't come from us. And it starts to think that it is us, and the stuff that's been told from outside is the only stuff that's important and matters. And that this information that is welling up from inside is a distraction and irrelevant and has to be suppressed and ignored so that we can follow the rules and get our stickers and our good marks.
Okay.
So instead of being a tool that enables us to live in this world as ourselves, the analytical mind becomes a tool to suppress and dominate our real selves and make us fit in with the culture we were born into.
Okay. All right. And so you are providing tools for and strategies, I assume, then as well in the process for people to get. Okay. And it can remove any unhealthy habit in a single session. How does that work?
Well, basically, our unhealthy habits, in essence, when you boil them down, they're all coping strategies for unpleasant emotions, right? If there isn't an emotional driver for a habit, it'll be easy to break. But if you find yourself, compulsively returning to the fridge at 9 p.m. every night, looking for the chocolate cake, even as much as you tell yourself you shouldn't, there's an emotion making that happen. There's an emotion, and your system has learned that if it can eat food, it can get away from that emotion. So when that emotion starts to stir, before it even becomes conscious, you're going, food, I need food. So all of our bad habits are just coping strategies for emotions that we don't think we can process directly. And once you have the skills to actually process those emotions directly, you don't need to use the coping strategies anymore. You can just release the emotion, and then you don't want the food anymore.
We're not as rational and sophisticated as we like to think we are we?
No, there's a lot of humility in this process.
That's what I'm saying here. Like, really? Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
But also a lot of fulfillment, because living in the analytical mind is kind of dry.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a very satisfying life. I mean, what use is a butterfly? Why should we spend any time looking at it? We have chores to do.
I gotcha. Okay. So I think this sounds absolutely incredible. How long did it take you to piece this all together? Like your own as you were like, I am falling apart. I have to figure this out. And so you start figuring out. How long did it take you before you had a full-blown business involved with this then?
Yeah. Oh, well, the process for me to get myself sorted out was 2 or 3 years. But then I was, sharing this with people, with friends and stuff, and, working it in with other things I was doing here and there for a long time. I didn't really start doing this as a business until I became a digital nomad. I started traveling. And then I was like, okay, well, what's, something really valuable that I can make available to people online, from anywhere in the world. And so that's where this particular program actually came together. It's like, okay, what are the key things that someone would need to know? What's the most efficient order, and how do we put it together? And so I started that process about 3.5 years ago.
Okay, so kind of a long, slow journey to putting it as a business. So what lights you up about this? What's the big why, the thing that makes it all worthwhile for you?
Well, for me, it's setting people free. Like, that's what I'm on this planet to do. I do it in a whole range of different ways. But this one is so profound. It's like I'm really like setting the actual person who was born into this body free from the prison that the culture and the analytical mind have created. And there's nothing more fulfilling than that.
I love that. That's awesome. I'm getting the coolest people. Like people I love hearing this. Okay, so what's something you're excited about? What's coming up for you?
Well, I have a new group of coaches who've just about finished training in how to deliver my program. And so I'm really excited to see them go out and start running people through the program and having that personal experience of someone just opening up and getting all the results.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's
What
so
do your
great to see
clients say?
my fledglings fly.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So what do your clients say to you when they're done with your program?
I wish I'd learned this in school. I wish I'd learned this before I had kids. This is life-changing. I am a whole new person. I had no idea this was possible. I've lost count of the number of times I've heard that from somebody. I just did something I thought was impossible.
Any plans to bring this to kids? Any way to do that, to bring this to kids, or are they just too young and not?
Between after about the age of 8 or 10, there's certainly aspects of this that could come to kids, but you need the parents to be on board. The parents need to have the understanding and be practicing it, because otherwise, like, you're putting the kid in an impossible situation.
That makes sense. Okay, so I assume that if people have questions and they type them out below, you'll pop in and answer them, get tagged and all that jazz. And do you have a Facebook group or anything that people can join, or do you not run one of those?
Yeah, I have one. It's called Emotional Mastery.
Okay, I'm gonna drop the link on that below as well, so that if people want to join, they can pop in there and connect with you, either friend request you, DM you, join your group or whatnot. Awesome. Yay. This was so fun. I loved getting to know more about you and your program. I think it sounds amazing.
It's great to talk to you. And thanks for, putting your own self into the conversation. It's really great.
All right. You have a good one tonight.
Yeah. Bye now.